We are going live. What's up, everybody? It is Tyler with Hooksets Are Free. It's about 9:15 p.m. here on Saturday, June the 11th. Hope you guys are all doing well, whether you're in here live or watching on the replay. Looks like we got Frank and Ron Holly in the house so far. What's up, guys? Hope everybody had a good Saturday. This stream is technically brought to you by three different places. First and foremost is Discount Tackle. One of my favorite places to shop online. You guys hear me talk about it all the time. If you are looking to buy high quality fishing gear online for a better deal than what you'd be able to get it for elsewhere, do check out Discount Tackle for their selection and their prices, and just the fact that it's good people, good customer service, fast shipping. And yeah, so I've got a package from Discount Tackle to show you. Got a package from Tackle Warehouse, who I do not work with, but will make a few or a handful of purchases per year when they've got good sales going. So I did make a purchase during Memorial Day just a couple weeks ago from Tackle Warehouse, and it's all over the place. I'll say that. So maybe we even ought to start with that. But lastly, this stream is technically brought to you by Beneath the Char, online podcast about whiskey. This isn't brought to you by them at all, but just want to give a shout out to my brother's podcast and Instagram page, Beneath the Char, Whiskey Addicts. So this is a new whiskey that I'm trying called First Call. I hadn't actually heard of it and saw it in my local liquor store. Saw that it came highly recommended. Is made by a guy who was involved at like 10 of the best distilleries in Kentucky. So, yeah, this is a relatively easy drinking, 45% or 90 proof. They just call it whiskey, Kentucky straight bourbon, and that's about all the info I've got on here. I don't know how long it's aged or anything in particular about it, but really good value bourbon that just recently picked up, and I'm trying for now the second or third time. You can see the first time I enjoyed it, with the help of a friend, but still made a little dent in the bottle. Sorry I missed a couple of your comments, guys. We got Ron, who is no longer a bassless chap. Dude, he's going to need to change his name. He was saying, what about grabbing bass? That sounds okay, but I think you could do better, Ron. John Smith in the house. Matt in the house. Adam. Tom. Rich. Why am I going to live? You need to get to bed. Yeah, well, sorry about it, man. You know the deal. Grayson, for the first time in forever. Matt needs to show a mega bass bait that he got. Well, perhaps in a little bit I can get you on this live stream. I'll send you a link, and if you can hop on late night, then maybe we'll do that. Yeah, Ron, this is going to be a fun live, so cheers, good sir. JP, yo, yo, yo. Matt, it tastes like bourbon. No, it has a little bit more smoky character to it than anything super sweet. I'll say that, but it's got some decent bite for being a 90 proof bourbon. I quite like it as just like a sessionable, easy drinking bourbon, something to kind of go to or potentially to warm up with if you're going to be drinking a lot of other bourbon. I don't think it needs the 2 cubes that I put it on, but still drinks really well. Just going to go down that much faster with the cubes in it. Adam says he's drinking his Basil Hayden. Right on, dude. All right. I'm going to open this Tackle Warehouse package because I think it's just going to be a little bit more all over the place. And then we'll get into the discount tackle order and why I decided to pick up what I did this month. But Tackle Warehouse orders, can involve a lot of like impulse purchasing because you see the prices and you kind of figure, oh, what the hell? This is a bait that I wasn't going to get. Didn't plan on it, but with that price, I'll give it a whirl. So that was actually kind of a lot of this purchase, if we're being honest. So I'll tell you right now that I only spent $85. Okay. So there's not a million things in here, but first thing that I want to show that catches my eye that I've been talking about is the Savage Gear Structure Gill, which is essentially their version of the Dark Sleeper. Berkeley just came out with the Agent E, which we may or may not see tonight in this package or the other one. But this is Savage Gear's take on the Dark Sleeper concept, and they've called it the Structure Gill. And as I suspected, it's more Dark Sleeper than it is Sleeper Gill, right? This is still relatively short in profile. It's not all that different than what you get out of a Dark Sleeper in terms of construction. It seems like same deal with the weed guard on the back. I'll have to see these baits in the water to see how well this tail kicks at different speeds and if it looks any different while it's swimming. But essentially, you're getting the same thing, just a little bit better color pattern. I don't know exactly how this bait's going to play out, but Savage Gear 3D Structure Gill. Maybe they don't call it 3D, but this is the 3-inch and half-ounce sinking version. I'm sure they don't make them floating, but anyway, got that guy for relatively cheap, coming in at $5.09. So decided to see what it looked like. Definitely should have gotten the bigger size, and I knew it. But again, I didn't want something that was going to be 3/4 of an ounce or an ounce, and that's just the way that they're weighted. Doesn't matter the bait, the company that makes them. Rich, I did not get a free t-shirt this go around. Just the free sticker, and I don't even know if I opted for it, but yeah, that it's about 50-50 for me. Maybe a free t-shirt twice a year, free sticker a few. Abe says he's driving back from his dad's ranch in Bum F, New Mexico, trying to catch most of the show, but won't be able to communicate. No problem, Abe. Thank you for tuning in. Dax Marshall, I'm glad that you're laughing. Sadie, what's going on? You girlies need to go to bed. I thought I heard them earlier. My bad, guys. Um, John says, "What's the triangle part on um, the part of the boot tail right here up top?" You know, a lot of soft plastic swim baits are made like that. I don't know if it's for stability or a slightly different type of action, but I know you can cut that off. Um, but I actually don't know exactly why companies make a tail like that. So anyway, I'll give this bait a shot, but just on first impressions, I don't have super high hopes for it. It doesn't seem all that different than, a dark sleeper does. So we'll see. If I find some bedding fish, of course, this bluegill color pattern is going to be wicked, but I don't know. Okay. Um, while we're on the topic of soft plastic swim baits, I got 2 packs of the Gancraft Bariki Shad. So this is a swim bait that I have had on my radar for some time, but for no particular reason, have not owned them. So this is some wild clamshell packaging. Looks like you can tear it to create, 2 separate packs of 2 if you wanted. And in each one, there's a slot for you to put an already rigged one, which in this size, I would presume is like a 6/0 owner beast. But very cool design here. Now, a guy I know fishes this bait like all the damn time, and he catches not only really good bass, but he catches walleye and a bunch of other species on this bait right here. A couple different color patterns, but doesn't look that crazy of a bait until you see that tail. So not only is it like squared off, but it also has just a hint of a joint right before it. The bait is thick until that last few millimeters before it hits the tail. So you're going to get a lot of action there. And then I could have sworn there was a place in the tail itself. It's really hard to see. But there's a hole in this notch at the top of the tail for you to be able to insert a rattle or some scent if you wanted to. And then it's got good rigging design where you've got a hook slot on bottom, a hook slot on the back, as well as that nub, which isn't on enough baits really. So you could be using a 4/0, probably up to a 5/0 hook, and be able to texpose your hook right into this notch instead of having to bend the bait to texpose it, because this does have a little bit of shape to it. Really soft plastic. Seems well designed. So a pack of these, which there's 4 in a pack, sells for $10, and they were 15% off. So I got this 4-pack for $8.50. Decided to finally pull the trigger on these baits that have just been like halfway on my radar for a long time. And the other color that I got in this bait is, I should have read these ahead of time. So this is called Ja IU, and the last one was called Shad Wakasagi. So this one just has a little bit more green in it, but is definitely like an IU type of color. And just for the sake of showing you guys, because I know that everyone appreciates being able to see what these colors look like in different lighting, and on other cameras. This one seems very natural and bait fishy, that little green hue to it. So one with a little bit more brown and one with a little bit more green, but both very natural color patterns that I decided to pick up to give a whirl the first time. And I'm going to start fishing these like ASAP because I want to know the deal. But 2 packs of those at $8.50 a pop. Got some soft plastics in here. Let's go through stuff that I don't have first, and then stuff that I do have. So first is one I don't have, and this is a brand new bait on the market this year. And in retrospect, I probably should have gotten the bigger size. So this is called the Jackal Rhythm Wag. And most people know the Rhythm Wave as a good soft plastic swim bait for sure. But now they're making a soft plastic jerk bait / drop shot bait. This comes in a 2-sided clamshell, which is cool. But this is just like a minnow style drop shot bait that in its larger size could be used as like a fluke, but this is a smaller 3.5-inch size. And to me, that just screams drop shot or Damiki rig, something like that. You know, you can see that there's a pretty significant amount of tail, probably 1.5 inches of tail on this 3.5-inch bait. So cool little profile on it. I think it'll probably do best just on a nose hook, maybe even that hover strolling technique that we were talking about recently when Matt was on. I don't know that we really talked about it much, but you know, I am curious to give it a shot. And the drop shot has just been such an effective rigging for me this year. So the other thing that I didn't just point out is these little tails. And you'd be surprised how in the water they actually separate a decent amount. Right now they're wanting to stick to each other, but these things actually do. There's 2 separate tentacles on them. So adds to the gliding action, a little bit more secondary action, if you will. So anyway, little bit pricey for what it is, but you know, with this smaller size, you get 7 in a pack. And you know, after a discount of 15%, what did I pay for these? $5.09. So the same price that I paid for that Savage Gear structure gill is what I paid for these Rhythm Wag drop shot baits. They make it in a 4.5-inch size, which I think would be slightly better for throwing on its own, but I still don't see it as like a super versatile bait. I probably wouldn't throw it like a fluke. I could see it working really well on the back of like a Okashira screwhead, for example, and just working it like a spy bait. But while we're like halfway on the topic of strolling, I'll mention that I did pick up a pack of these Decoy Jig 53F hooks made for hover strolling. Hover strolling. So these guys have, I think, a 60-degree line tie on them. And I'll pull one out to show you. Essentially, you're just going to thread this very close to the nose of the bait. But this is a size 2 hook. So you're going to go down and then thread through the middle or slightly below middle of the bait, and then come up dead center. And so the eye will be poking out close to or just above the head of the minnow that you're going to use. And then small size 2 hook here. So this guy has a little bit of like a keeper built into the first part of the shank of the hook. It's an interesting design on this hook, but I think this hook and that rhythm wag bait could and would do really well together as like a hover strolling type of deal. Bruce Nichols in the house. What's up, brother? Frank says Matt Steffen just did a video on hover strolling. Now I have another finesse technique I'm dying to try. Yeah, I hear you. I did not see his video though, so maybe I ought to try checking it out. JP says, I got the same decoy strolling hook but haven't tried the technique yet. Seems like a Clearwater deal. Yeah, I would agree, JP. Definitely seems that way, but I've got a couple places that I can give that a shot. So just trying to diversify the number of ways that I can target fish like that. So I might end up using it in a lot of the same spots that I use the Jackal eye shad, um, and plan to really use the Megabass Hazadong shad. A bunch of these finesse baits that are just very fishy in look, but meant to be fished slowly on almost a dead action type of retrieve or just a straight retrieve. So got some soft plastics that I already have, but wanted more of. First thing is just 2 packs of the Zoom Swamp Crawler. This is a bait that I talk about fairly frequently, and I don't know if you guys have caught on to that or if you fish the Swamp Crawler yet, but if not, you need to. These guys come 25 to a pack. This is a skinny worm, okay? It's like 5.5 inches in length. I don't know exactly what it is, but this is a skinny worm with very little salt. Super, super deadly on a drop shot. Whether you are nose hooking it, you're wacky rigging it, you're Nico rigging it, you're shaky heading it. There's so much you can do with the Swamp Crawler, and this is one of the best value worms on the market. So 25 to a pack, and paid $4.24 for each of these packs, which, for Zoom sounds expensive, but when you get 25 worms in a pack, it's really not, paying like 20 cents per worm. So that Swamp Crawler is deadly and underrated. I only had it in a couple of colors that are a little bit wilder. So these more natural green pumpkin and just a straight pumpkin, more of a brown, like night crawler type of color, I think should work wonders for me and allow me to fish the Swamp Crawler that much more frequent and effective than I have before. But I've had a lot of success on it the last year or two in particular. Chris, losing big fish, says, hey, everyone, just got the notification on my way back from fishing. Mr. XR Woody, what's up? Cheers to you as well. Sadie, please go back to bed. All right, my bad. My bad, gentlemen. All right, that's tasty. Moving on, I've got 2 packs of the Savage Gear Ned Craw. I've talked about this bait a handful of times, but I think until now I only had 1 or 2 colors, and I just wanted more. This is a bait that I have a tremendous amount of confidence in. Uh, this is a Ned rig sized bait, but bass will eat this thing, and it looks hyper realistic all the way down to the details of all of the individual appendages. And this bait is made from Duratech or their elastomer material. So you get the best of both worlds here, where you get their 3D, 4D, printing abilities in making the mold, and then you get this thing made out of Duratech, and it will last a million fish. Really, you're gonna hang up and lose it before anything else. So this is the Alabama Craw color, and then I also picked up like a green pumpkin chartreuse color. These things just come 4 to a pack, but a 4-pack will last you a really long time. So I paid $3.38 for each of these packs of Ned Craws. These things are only 2.5 inches in size. So really small bait, fits on a Ned head quite well, but I've had the most success in drop shotting this little guy. Look at that green pumpkin chartreuse. Would be awesome on a micro jig, but is really good on a Ned head. You can see that they kind of thickened up, or at least flattened it so it'll take a Ned head quite well. And really any Ned head, it'll take all the way up to, a 1/0 hook just fine. Also really good bait on like a straight shank drop shot style hook, like a 1/0. Does really well on that guy. So anyway, 2 packs of the Savage Gear 3D or Savage Gear Ned Craw. And yep, can't say good enough things about them. If you're gonna throw a cross style Ned bait, this is right there in my top 2 or 3. The Z-Man TRD Craws is great, but it's even more buoyant than this one. It's slightly less realistic. And the Yum Ned Craw is also really good. But I got 1 pack of terminal tackle in here. And this is a free rig drop shot that is cool because it has a rattle built into it. So this is their 3/16 size, and this is made by a company called Ventana, tearshot.com, Ventana Rattle Series. So this is a free rig style drop shot weight with that open eye. But the drop shot weight itself contains a rattle in it. So this thing's going to make noise every time the weight hits the bottom or you start moving the bait, which I think is an interesting concept. Plus, I also just like this shape of drop shot weight. So, you know, uh, maybe not the most cost effective purchase because you get 5 in a pack here. And what did I pay on them? Team Davies rattling free rig weight, $3.39. So I think ordinarily these are probably a little bit expensive for what they are because they are lead weights. So to be paying $1 per weight is pretty expensive. But for a rattling free rig weight, I was intrigued. So I decided to give it a shot. And I've got two other baits in this package that were not necessarily planned out. So they're interesting purchases. They're both swim baits, but the first one is a non-lipped version of a bait that Ron Hawley gave. Sorry, not Ron. Will Perriman gave to me a couple years ago, and unfortunately hasn't gotten a lot of use from me because it is a crank down as opposed to a glide bait. But this bait right here is the dual hardcore twitch and glide, the Ninja Twitch and Glider. So this is a glide bait that is probably around the same size as like the Storm Arashi glide. This is a 7-inch bait, so 180 millimeters, and it weighs 2 5/8 ounces. This is the slow sinking model, and it looks like an okay bait. You can see that they've got the Ninja Swimmer and then the Ninja Twitch and Glider with no bill. So this is the glider, and I have one of the swimmer already in a totally gold color, but this is a JDM color that is just called rainbow trout, as you might suspect. But this bait is like a reasonable deal ordinarily. They retail the bait at like $40, but you can routinely find these on sale. And Tackle Warehouse had these on sale before the sale, maybe even on clearance. And so I managed to get this bait here, which retails at $40, and I bought it for $16.97. So this was a bait that was not on my radar, but because of the prices, I felt a little bit obligated to try it. Of course, I'm not obligated whatsoever, but this bait looks interesting enough and worth a shot. So if I don't fall in love with the action, I might try adjusting it a little bit. And then eventually, if need be, I'll give it away or something like that. But here she is, really gorgeous rainbow trout pattern. You've got that single joint that has a pretty mild amount of give to it. So I would assume it's got a relatively tight gliding action to it. But this color pattern looks really nice. Comes with 2 tails in the pack. So this is a soft rubber tail, but it comes with 2 in the package already. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to at least check this bait out. Doesn't have swiveling hook hangers. The stock trebles look okay. I like that they come with these, little hook protectors on them, and that you get 2 tails in a pack. But I don't really have a lot of knowledge about this bait. But for $16, $17, I kind of felt the need to figure it out, to at least try out the bait. So that's what I'm going to do, and potentially even whip out the old Ninja Swimmer from Will Perriman and see how I like it. But did I miss some comments? What did he say? Lost my father in January and my first son, due in August. Dang. Sorry, man. Bruce, thank you for sharing. You said your dad passed in August, caught one the day after his funeral, got back into it. It's amazing how fishing can clear your mind. Good point. Frank says I lost my parents 13 days apart over 15 years ago. Still miss them. Yeah, wow, crazy when they go together like that, you know? Makes you think that it's really something that we can control, you know, when we let go. Uh, Kind of freaky to think about. So Matt says you have to modify the crankdown one to get a really good action. It's pretty easy. Just need a Dremel. Okay. I'll talk to you about that offline because I do want to try both baits while I'm out spending the time on the glider. Might as well try the swimmer as well. You know, Woody, don't feel sorry for hijacking the chat, dude. All good. I don't know about the Aldebaran, dude. Sorry that I can't answer. It might be new in the last like year and a half. Yeah. All right, Matt. Yeah, go ahead and send me that video for sure. Robert says you should tie on a heavy braid hook hanging loop on that glider. Heavy braid hook hanging loop. I've seen people do that, but I haven't tried it myself. So I just might give it a shot, you know? Last bait that I got in this package, let's just double check. Yep. Last bait is the IMA Glide Fluke. So this is a hybrid style swim bait that is a little bit different. So it's not been on my radar too aggressively. I mean, I had heard about it. It almost reminds me of like the old Sabile Magic Swimmer in the shape of the bait, and you know, just the way that it looks in general. So this is the bigger size. They make this in two sizes. This is like the 185, 178, and then they make it in like a 125 size, which would be a lot more friendly to most bodies of water. But you know, at 178, this is 6 inches long. Certainly not a big bait, and I believe this is the floating version. So they make two versions, a floating and a sinking. So this floating is 2.5 ounces, and the sinking is 2.8 ounces. These come with size 1 treble hooks on them. Looks like you could probably size up, you know, to a 1/0 if you wanted to. But this is a bait that is meant almost more to be fished on a straight retrieve, and it's got a pretty decent glide and swim to it. But I guess this thing, even the floating version, will dive down a couple of feet as you're working the bait. And then the sinking one needs to be worked a little more aggressively. The floating one will slow float back up to the top. But apparently, this bait is one that, because of its straight swim, relatively speaking, you know, this is not a traditional glide bait, but you can fish it fast and kill it and then kind of rip it. Work this thing almost like you would a lipless crankbait, in addition to using it like you would a glide bait. So this color here is called Silver Lining. I've got this color in the I'm a Suspending Vibe lipless crankbait, which is also a really cool hybrid concept we've talked about before. But this is the I'm a Glide Fluke in the F or floating version in the 178. So this guy put me back $16.14. So, you know, this is like a $20 bait, something like that, but it was on sale and down to 16 bucks. So I really decided to spend, you know, $34 or whatever it was on these two swim baits. Uh, because I almost couldn't help it, right? Like the price was just too good. So 17 bucks for this guy, 16 bucks for this guy. Why not? We'll give him a shot, and I will report back on what I think about those. The Glide Fluke definitely has my attention because it's designed differently and supposed to act a little differently. So I like that about certain baits. The Jackal Gantarelle is really known for being a kick out style straight retrieve bait. So it has this wandering, relatively tight glide to it that maybe travels 12 to 18 inches side to side. It doesn't have a really wide glide, but when you kill it, that thing will just kind of dart off, wander off to the side. And then if you twitch it, it will turn around. It has really good subtle action when you need it to, but it has a good straight swim like itself or on its own. So, yeah, pretty cool deal. Matt says, you know what cheap glide I won that I've not tried yet? Want to see how it does. Jerry Rago worked on it. The Cha-Cha glide from Thunderhawk. Might try it tomorrow. Yeah, that one definitely looks a little interesting to me too. There's a couple of cheap glide baits that I've considered getting, and that one has come on and off my radar relatively quickly. But let us know. JP, say you agree it looks like a giant magic swimmer. Yeah, they make the magic swimmer in like, a 9-inch or maybe even bigger. So it's definitely like a striper lure with all those different segments. But yeah, the Glide Fluke looked a little bit more appealing than say the magic swimmer, which I've actually never used before. John says, I wish that IMA had consistent lettering on all their baits. It's like the designers experiment with different text for every single bait. Yeah, interesting. The font is different on all of their baits. That is kind of strange, dude. Ron says, on the Gantarelle, do you prefer the slow sink, fast sink, or floater? I didn't even know they made all those versions. I use the floater exclusively. I really like the way that bait works as a floating bait. I can get it down to maybe 2 or 2.5 feet as it's in closer distance to me. But on a long cast, that thing's going to wander in the like 6-inch to 18 inches of water, which is awesome as a bank fisherman to be able to cover that very top portion of the water column. And then if you kill the bait for 10 seconds, it'll make its way to the surface. But it's a slow floater, almost like a suspender. So you could easily modify the sink rate on that thing with some suspend strips. I would imagine you could get it to suspend immediately and then get it to slow sink on your own without a tremendous amount of weight. So good question, Ron. So that does it for the Tackle Warehouse order. And let's just move on to Discount Tackle, since that's really what we're all here for. Not really. That Tackle Warehouse package was cool. Managed to get all of those different things for, what was it, 80 bucks? So not mad about it. Now, when it comes to Discount Tackle, I usually have like 2 different mindsets. I'm either trying to find everything that I can that's discounted and just save as much money as possible on things that I know that I already like or am curious about trying out. Or I just go all out and I try to find higher end baits that I haven't had the opportunity to try, either due to availability or color patterns or another reason. But I did decide to get 2 higher end baits in here. And the first one, I'll show you in 1 second. The second one is actually out of its package for some weird reason. Hope you're not totally seeing that. I don't know how it jumped out of its package, but it did. Maybe the mailman was looking at it. But so I've got two swim baits in here, one soft, one hard, that that have been on my radar for a while. But there's been a couple of things holding me back. And so the first one is the Megabass Mag Draft in the 8-inch and in this baby bass color pattern. So the 8-inch Mag Draft is significantly bigger than the 6-inch. The 6-inch Mag Draft is something you can throw on so many different setups because the thing only weighs like 1.5 ounces at most when it's rigged up. So it's a very easy to work bait on a wide variety of setups. Whereas this guy in the 8-inch actually specs out a little bit bigger, 8 inches long, 3 ounces in weight. So this is a bait that needs to be thrown on gear that can handle it. And now that I have a Dobyns Fury 795, have had it for a year and a half. Gosh, I feel like I want to get into this packaging so bad. It's possible that I would love to hang this up right with the mag slow, but I also want to see this bait right now. So I'm going to try and just undo one of these staples. Oh, I'm already ripping the package. Oh, I blew it. All right. So I'll even hold one of these up next to a 6-inch so that you guys can get a feel for, how everything is just subtly different. Because, I've had a lot of success on the 6-inch mag draft, and I'm a big fan of it. But I've heard guys talk about how the 8-inch and the 10-inch are just that much more productive for them. So that was partially my logic was, okay, now that I actually have a setup that's right for it, maybe I ought to be trying out the 8-inch. The 10-inch steps up to like another ballpark that is like a 6-ounce swim bait, and my Dobyns Fury will handle baits up to 4 ounces fairly well. So this 3-ounce size is kind of a perfect middle of the road bait for me to throw on that setup. But let's see kind of size wise how it compares to the 6-inch. And this is just the closest one that I've got sitting here. I'm not grabbing this color pattern for a specific reason. But here is the 6-inch. This is that white back shad color. And here is the 8-inch. These are directly side by side. So you can see just how much thicker of a bait the 8-inch is, how much longer of a bait, and how much more tail is on this thing. So that's what I suspected might be the case. You can also see the hardware, on the 6-inch is a very standard size swivel split ring, and the hook is maybe a size 4 or size 2. But as you step up to the 8-inch, all of a sudden, all of your stuff is really upgrading. This is a much bigger swivel, much heavier duty split ring. And this is probably like a 1/0 hook. Pretty big treble hook on this guy. So who knows? Might swap out that treble hook. But regardless, I'm going to rig this like I do with all mag drafts, where I'm actually throwing this hook up into the belly and tucking it in there to just kind of do one better than the magnet is capable of doing. But regardless, I like the color pattern on this bait. It's not the most gorgeous baby bass, but just the fact that it's got this silvery white belly that dark green fading to lighter green. Very fishy look to it, and hoping to catch some baby bass or carp eaters on this thing. I'll show you the tail amount that we've got now and just how drastically different it most likely is on these two baits. So take a look at that. On the 6-inch mag draft, it's really the last, what is this? I don't know, 20% of the bait that is bending over. On the 8-inch mag draft, it's falling over here, which is probably more at the 35% of the bait. So you get quite a bit more tail action in this bait. And in my opinion, will be that much better for slow rolling, which has been a slight hang up of mine when using the 6-inch, is that I find that you can't swim it super slow without the action dying a little bit on it. So that's part of what I was curious about in the 8-inch of the mag draft, was just how much heavier the bait is, how much more tail you get in the 8-inch versus the 6. And right away, I can tell that you get quite a bit more. So that is something that passed the test that I was hoping it would pass. And it's going to get used for me here in, the next few weeks for sure. You know, the fish have stopped spawning in some of the areas near me. And so I'm seeing a lot of small bass that are guarding fry and that are just up in the shallows, probably trying not to get killed. But 8-inch mag draft, baby bass color, picked it up and just managed to get it back in its packaging. What's up? Ron says, what's the weight on the 6-inch? Well, let's take a quick look. I assume you're talking about the mag draft and not the Gantarelle, or were you talking about the Gantarelle? If we're looking at just the mag draft baits that are already pre-harnessed, pre-rigged, come one to a package. The 6-inch is 1.25 ounces. The 8-inch is 3 ounces, and the 10-inch is 6 1/8. So really steps up in weight there. But yeah, just 1.25 ounces on that 6-inch. So that's why I have so many of them. Feels like a very manageable swim bait. I even prefer the freestyle a little bit more than the traditional because I can and will sometimes rig these things as line throughs. Go with the freestyle and rig it as a line through if I want to, but I rarely do that. I'm either throwing it on an exposed jig head. If I'm cutting off, I'll trim like right at the eye to thread a pretty big exposed hook on there, or I will just throw it on, a beast hook style presentation, which does the trick very well. But I wish I had my scale down here because I had brought a couple of swim baits down. Specifically, I brought down the 7-inch spark shad again because I just wanted to remind you guys that on this bait, even though it's 1 inch longer than the mag draft, you get a whole lot more tail in this thing, where it's all the way down here. Whereas in the 6-inch mag draft, it's just 1 inch and some of tail. So this 7-inch bait all of a sudden has a lot more action on it than the 6-inch mag draft does. And so I've always been a big fan of the 7-inch spark shad, but because it's been discontinued and I don't know if it's going to come back, I thought maybe that 8-inch mag draft could be the deal. I've been waiting and hoping that they would make a 8-inch freestyle, but they haven't showed any signs of doing that. And I picked that out because remember I've got a couple of these Weston swim baits that are a lot like a mag draft. Holy shnikes. And I've got them in a few different sizes, but this is their giant 10-inch size. So this guy is probably going to overpower my Dobbins Fury 795. It's got this cool stinger setup that I rigged on it with two treble hooks that are probably a 1/0, maybe even a 2/0 size. So I have this color and one in a rainbow trout in this Weston Hypo Tees swim bait that I've been meaning to try out, but just haven't yet. They don't have an open belly and therefore have to be thrown on a stinger style rigging. But yeah, seeing just how much tail that guy had in the bigger sizes made me think of, well, maybe the 8-inch mag draft actually has quite a bit more tail and you could do different things with it than you would with the 6-inch. So yeah, Matt, you might be right. The mag slow is very similar to the 7-inch spark shad. Yeah, perhaps. I know the mag slow has a little bit of a different shape tail so that it can swim at faster speeds, but don't quote me on that. Robert says I trim out some mass from the belly to the tail to increase the tail action. On what baits, dude? On those Weston baits or on mag drafts? Do tell. I've got one other swim bait. This one is a hard bait that is JDM and is also full price. So with that mag draft, I paid the full $24.99 for that soft plastic swim bait. I mean that's relatively pricey, right? Now, this bait I also paid full price for, but it's not that expensive for what it is. And this is the Megabass Battalion swim bait, which kind of reminds me of the I'm a Glide fluke in some ways because of its shape and design. And the way that I've heard some people refer to this bait like a hybrid swim bait and lipless crankbait. So that is partially why I got this bait, is that it's different. It's got a very realistic bluegill profile to it. And this color pattern is sick, right? This thing is called GG Gill. And it's lovely. It's got some purple and pink. The stripes are almost like a chartreuse green color. But yeah, purple fin on there. So beautiful color pattern. You can see that shape is a little bit, it gets fatter right in the belly of the bait before that joint. And then it's pretty narrow. But this bait swims nose down, can be ripped. But again, I think this is a floating bait. And maybe they make them in suspending or sinking versions, but I believe this is a floating bait. So this is the Battalion 115, which is a 1 3/8 ounces in weight. So you can see on the package, it does say floating, shallow range. So all of a sudden, this is going to be a bait that I'm going to throw in the same situations that I'm using the Jackal Gantarel. And this is roughly the same price, right? This is a $29.99. It's a Megabass bait. It's bigger than a Vision 110. It has a different action and purpose. This is really a swim bait meets a lipless crankbait. So it's small enough to potentially be an oversized lipless crankbait or a Magnum crankbait, but it's small enough to be a realistic size bluegill in that 5-inch range. So this guy has a little bit of a rattle to it, has a fairly consistent swimming action that's going to just make it travel, kind of like I said with the Gantarel. And then when you stop it, it will kick out a little bit. Then this is going to act a little bit more like a glide bait than, say, the Gantarel. Probably one that you can work a little bit more aggressively without it looking funny. But I don't really know a ton about this bait. But because I've had more interest in bluegill swim baits, especially in more of a realistic and manageable size, uh, I think 5 inches is kind of that sweet spot size. But this Battalion is one that I've been curious about for years, but never pulled the trigger on. So one single joint on this guy, but really unique shape, allows the bait to run nose down a little bit. So I'll try to get some action footage of that bait. So right there, those two baits add up to $55. That is pretty much my, entire order. There's two packages of soft plastic baits in here that, for lack of a better term, were more of impulse purchases. Got my little Discount Tackle sticker. Shout out. And yeah, let's talk about these for a second. So first one doesn't deserve a lot of attention, but the Guggen Baits soft plastics were, and maybe still are, on super sale at Discount Tackle. By the time I made this purchase, a lot of colors in some of the baits that I, like, were largely sold out. So I didn't go way down that rabbit hole. Plus, I didn't want to spend, you know, $30 on Guggen baits just because I don't use them all that frequently. But this is a bait of theirs that I do, and it's called the Rattling Chunk. So I throw this as a jig trailer somewhat frequently. It's got just the right amount of bulk and action and size. It's a little bit bigger and bulkier than like what I showed you with the Rage Chunk last night. This is very similar, but it's got a lot more scent on it, and it's got a rattle built into the nose section of the bait. So this is a Rattling Chunk, a jig trailer, and I figured a June bug color would be good to have. I've got a couple packs in green pumpkin, or maybe that green pumpkin blue, but I like these as jig trailers. Had some good success on them last year, and these were like $3 for a pack, so it was a good deal, and I wasn't going to turn that down. And then the last thing that I picked up, it was also a good deal. So let's see if I've got the do I have the order slip? So those Rattling Chunks, I paid $3.59 for the pack. So 50 cents a bait. Good deal. I think normally they're like $5.99 or $6.99. So yeah, pick those up. I can smell that scent from a ways away. And this last thing was on sale just a little bit. And I got it for none other than Ron Hawley, our boy, our no longer bassless chap. And this is the Berkeley Powerbait Agent E. So this is really to compare alongside this guy, which is the Savage Gear Structure Gill. So really just playing around with all of these baits that are in the same category now that the Dark Sleeper has established itself as a category of baits, even with new profiles coming out. There have been multiple companies, now 2, 3, maybe 4 companies that have imitated this style of bait, this category that is essentially a soft plastic swim bait that is pre-rigged and meant to be fished on bottom like a jig. So This is the Agent E in the HD bluegill color. Very good looking color pattern on this thing. Passes my test. Now, this weed guard, which is supposed to be a differentiating factor, uh, which, the dark sleeper has a fin, right? To hide the hook. It's got a fin on both sides of the bait. So this splits open, reveals the hook, and yeah, it's supposed to work like a weed guard, but doesn't do its job very well at protecting against weeds. But it does hide the hook fairly well. So it's a really good goby imitator. But now Savage Gear has used the same technology or weed guard system, whereas the Agent E is one that utilizes just a fluorocarbon line that runs in front to behind the hook. This is probably a 25-pound fluorocarbon leader material used to be the weed guard. So I would imagine this thing is relatively stiff. You're gonna have to set the hook rather hard to get past this weed guard, which is not the end of the world, but is something you're going to want to pay attention to if you leave this weed guard on there. Uh, Now, I think it's fine to have this weed guard style instead of multiple strands, since this is, you know, the type of bait that is weighted on the bottom of the bait so that it will rest perfectly laying down on bottom. So you're not going to get a lot of snags from it rolling on its side and catching something. You're just going to get into something that is too thick to get out of, and you're going to get hung up. So that still will happen. But the Agent E comes with power bait already in it, which is cool. It's got these good color patterns like this HD bluegill, which is cool. And they come to a package, which is also cool. So I like all of that. You can see already that this tail, while it's not perfectly straight out of the package and is annoying, uh, it's got some decent kick to it. I was hardly moving it, and it looks like the tail might just be a little bit thinner on this guy than it is on the dark sleeper. Now, this isn't a great example because this is the bigger size dark sleeper. But yeah, it looks like maybe the Agent E just has a hair more kick to it, which who knows how much of a difference that'll make in the long run. But this color pattern is one that I really like. This is the size, the 3-inch and half-ounce size that is really my go-to when it comes to this style of bait. So these guys were 2 in a pack, and did I already say they were $7 and change? So I paid $4 or a little less for each of these Agent E's, whereas even on sale, I paid $5 for the structure gill, and I think you would pay $6 or $7 for a dark sleeper, maybe even more than that. I'm not sure. So I see what these companies are doing in trying to come into the market to grab a little piece of the pie. Let's see what the dark sleeper goes for these days. And they just released the sleeper gill, so it's going to get a lot more attention than the dark sleeper these days. But the dark sleeper sells for $5.99, $6.99, $7.99, depending on the size that you get. But that 3-inch half ounce is a $6.99 bait. So sounds about right. And that is literally all that I picked up. So kind of all over the place, right? Both of these orders from Tackle Warehouse and from Discount Tackle, just kind of all over the place. Got some new swim baits to throw around, hard baits and soft baits. I'm sorry, I've still got this comment pinned, man. I didn't mean to do that. Matt says he uses the Battalion like a lipless. Okay, good and current. and near edges if you go super slow over the top. Interesting. Daniel says the Guggen Kraken Craw, I think it's called, works well on a chatterbait, but they tear up so easily. Yeah, I only like the Kraken Craw okay. I like the Bandito Bug a lot more, especially on a chatterbait, for the same reasons as like what I talked about the other day or last week, um, about a round versus flat profile. Much better for skipping, for swimming the chatterbait on a more steady retrieve, uh, not getting hung up quite as frequently. So, yeah, I much prefer the Bandito Bug if you're going to use one of those. Um, and then I like that Rattle and Chunk. Those are really my two favorite Guggen baits, soft plastics. I'll say that. The Agent E does have more kick, but needs to be reeled faster to engage the tail. Yeah, so I noticed that from that video that Ty from Bass Fishing HQ put out. It did look like he was swimming those on a pretty reasonable, steady retrieve. So yeah, I don't usually fish the dark sleeper just on a swim bait style retrieve and cast and wind it back in. Like it's so stable and so pre-weighted that it wants to be down on the bottom, showing off what it can do. But that Agent E looks to have some head wag too. So if you just ignored what I just said and thought to yourself, well, this is really a finesse swim bait with good action, good stability, and that's how I'm going to use this bait. You certainly could, and not only get away with it, but have some good success on it. Uh, but even still, then it's a 3-inch bait that you're paying $4 a bait for with just a standard jig hook. Like is that necessary? I think there's plenty of 3 and 3.5 inch uh, soft plastic swim baits on the market that are as good or better. Even just this little Yum Scottsboro swim bait. These things are $1 a piece, and then depending on the lead head that you want to put on it, maybe you're paying another dollar. Uh, you really shouldn't be paying $4 to $5 per swim bait. So I usually don't see those baits and think that's a swim bait. Ron says, without seeing it, what would you think about a 3.5 inch 3-joint sunfish hard plastic swim bait? 3.5 inches and 3 joints is a lot going on. A 3.5 inch bait is small as it is. So 3 joints in the bait, um, to me, that just screams probably cheaply made or fake. It probably has like mesh in between the joints. I've seen those before, and I mean they can look fine, but if you're gonna do something like that, you might as well just get some of the baby bull shads or the baby bull gills, because they're like the same size, and they're, I think, 3 joint baits, right? Like here's the baby bull gill. This guy's got 1, 2, 3 joints, 2 good trebles on it, and it might be 4 inches in length, but this is a good bait. And likewise, the baby bull shad has 3 joints, a little bit slimmer profile because this is a shad and not a bull or a bluegill, but same deal where you got 3 joints, a really good consistent swimming action on it, wants to be swam pretty fast, but has a really good swim to it. And yeah, I mean, they're $15, but you're way better off getting one of those than like a knockoff. And that would just be my 2 cents straight out of the gate. One of those baby bull gill or bull shads will last you quite a bit longer than what you were just looking at, if I had to guess, Ron. Matt says that Geek Crack Gill swim bait is that small, and Lucky Craft made one, but discontinued. I have one more, like a crankbait. I don't know what you're saying. Frank says, Spark Shad, what's your favorite way to use them? What sizes that are still available do you most often use? Good question, Frank. Uh, so, the sizes that are available right now are really the 3, 4, and 5. And the 3-inch, in my opinion, is a very narrow bait in terms of applications. Like it fits an Okashira screw head perfectly. So if you intend to use that pairing where you're using an Okashira screw head that's like a 16th or a 3/32 of an ounce, like a light jig head, and you're just going to straight swim it, then that's a great rig. But otherwise, the 4-inch is going to be the most versatile, where you could throw it most easily on the back of a swim jig, potentially a chatterbait. You could throw it as a standalone swim bait. You can throw it on the back of a spinnerbait if you wanted to, but really, it's got a pretty soft material, and it does rip up fairly easily. So I prefer to rig a Spark Shad on. I don't even remember where I've got them put, but I throw the 5-inch Spark Shad more than I throw the 4 because, in my mind, that's when I'm going to throw it as a standalone swim bait. And this 5-inch has some good size to it. So I'm usually throwing this on a 4/0 or a 5/0 keel weighted, belly weighted swim bait hook. Um, it's got a good amount of tail. It's got those notches on the back. So a 4-inch would work just as well, but I find that the 5-inch, like with a lot of other baits, is just going to draw the attention of some slightly bigger fish, and you won't go through quite as many baits. But the 4-inch is more versatile. You could throw it on the back of something else, whether it's a spinnerbait, a chatterbait, a swim jig, especially. Whereas the 5-inch is going to be a little bit big for that, Frank. 4-inch is good too. So, all for different reasons. The 3-inch more for a finesse swim bait situation, like an Okashira screwhead. 5-inch for more of like a straight, weedless swim bait, or even on an exposed head. You can cut off the first 1/4 inch of the nose and thread that onto a larger single jig hook. But yeah, 4-inch or 5-inch would be my biggest recommendation. Ron says 3 joints, including the head. Well, the head is not a joint, it's a segment, but steel joints. I mean, what does the bait cost, Ron? Why not just get a baby bull shad or baby bull gill, since they're only $15 a pop? Shoot, I'll send one to you, dude. Frank says, thanks. I'm running out of rhythm waves and was thinking of trying the Spark Shad in bigger sizes. I only have 3-inch for my Okashiras at the moment. Yep. Well, looks like you've got one of the techniques covered. So if it were me, I'd just step up to the 5-inch and get 1 or 2 packs of that, and just know that you could get away with a 4/0 owner beast, but really, a 5/0. You could probably even use a 6/0 owner beast, but I think 5/0 is really ideal if you can find it. I know that Trocar makes them in their Magnum swim bait heads. Um, it's like their swim blade, but just it's like an owner beast hook made by Trocar. They make them in odd sizes, so the 3/5 7 as opposed to 4, 6, 8 like you get with the beast hooks. So I think I'm caught up on comments for a moment. Um, what else do you guys want to talk about? We've been on for an hour and 23. I managed to fly through a bunch of those baits, which was cool. But are there any that you guys want to talk about? Um, any comments that you have? Any questions about anything in particular? Because in retrospect, maybe I went through those packages too fast. Um, I'm excited to try some of these, and this Bariki shad is going straight to the top of my list. Really cool packaging on this guy. So you can fold off the top and then fold these in half. And then literally all you have is a clamshell that's slightly bigger than these baits. And you could carry 2 of these around. What a cool design. Best clamshell design I've seen in soft plastics. You got one where you can have the hook actually rigged and sitting in this slot. Super cool. So 4 in a pack for $10. Not a cheap soft plastic swim bait, but also not crazy. It's a little bit more expensive than the Kitex, perhaps a little bit more expensive, or right about the same as the Spark Shad. But Bariki Shad goes up. Got to figure out a good place to put those. Ron says, have you seen the Slobber Knocker by Berkeley? I have not. Is that the name for their chatterbait? Maybe we ought to check it out. Berkeley Slobber Knocker. Feels weird that I'm Googling Slobber Knocker. Now, I can't find pictures of this thing. Of course, Alex Rudd and some other people have been talking it up big time for the last, probably 2 months or so, but I haven't seen it released or anything. I can't even really see pictures, but I would imagine it's going to be good. But did they license Z-Man's patent like Strike King did with the Thunder Cricket? Because I would kind of hope so. If they're trying to compete in that market. I mean, it's entirely possible that they saw how well Strike King has done in grabbing a portion of the market with the Thunder Cricket, because it's kind of like a 1B to the jackhammer, where you're utilizing that direct blade to head connection. So you get the speed up of the blade, you get a higher quality blade, but you get that direct connection. And that plus a good hook and bait keeper is about all that matters on a chatterbait. And they've got the owner Zowire jungle flipping hook on there with 2 different bait keepers, that insanely good blade and paint on the head. So they've taken notes in doing most of what the jackhammer does well, aside from maybe the skirts, a little underwhelming on the Thunder Cricket, but then sold it at a more affordable price tag. So what we see happening with the Dark Sleeper, already happened with the chatterbait, with Strike King putting out the Thunder Cricket. So am I surprised that Berkeley's making a chatterbait? No. Do I hope that it utilizes a direct blade to head connection? Yes. So I really don't know what the deal is with that bait, but we will have to cross our fingers and wait and see just what the deal is and why it's worth giving a shot versus what's already on the market. Ron says, I believe the blade connects directly on either side without a ring. If I saw it clearly, it was hard to see though. Huh. Yeah, I haven't like gone down that rabbit hole of really trying to learn much about it. I know it's coming out, but no, I didn't even know the name. Slobber knocker, huh? That's that's hard in the paint and kind of a wild name. I don't know how I feel about that. So I'm just looking at a couple of these baits that I unboxed with you guys last night when I had Matt on. Some of these crankbaits that I picked up from Midway USA, and I'm curious to see how these guys roll. I'll say that the knocker in these River to Sea biggies really catches my attention. Very deep knock that almost reminds me of like a bandit or a Norman style lure where you get that rattle that like wants to get stuck. And it's a unique sound for sure. Kind of takes me back. Feels old school, but cool color patterns on those. Curious to see how they work out. The Jackal MC60 is one that I'm pretty jazzed about. This is their MR version or medium runner. And you can see that this bait is a standard body size, as like a 1.5, but it's got that lip on it that's going to be more of a true shallow to mid runner. And this is a like a 6 to 8 foot diver. It's got that bill that starts off more narrow and then gets wider as it goes, and it has those rounded edges on it, and is really a good rock fishing square or a medium diver. So going to be something that I throw in the place of a wiggle wart, a rock crawler, Bill Lewis, MR6, something along those lines. And then I also got a couple of their shallow runners. So the MC60 SR, which just runs 2 to 4 feet deep, and should be quite a bit different of a bait. So you get a different shaped bill. Although I think this is the same body. Let's just double check. Same body on that guy. Believe it is. But a totally different bill. Technically a square lip on it, but should make for some interesting action on this. Also a subtle knock on all of these Jackal crankbaits. So I got 2 of the shallow runners, 2 of the mid runners, 2 of those River to Sea biggie square bills, one in the bigger size, the Papa, and one in the smaller size, the what do they call it? Junior biggie smalls. Damn it. I knew that. And then I got some other River to Sea stuff. A couple of their frogs. This was showed by Rich Hellabass over on Debo's stream tonight. Is this River to Sea Bully Wah in the bigger 65 size. I noticed that the body style and shape is just a little bit different on the 55 than it is on the 65. And I don't know. I'm excited about both sizes. Though Debo was saying he finds the 55 to be a little too small. He thinks the hooks are small. Hookup ratio can be affected. And he thought the 65 was perfect. And, I'm not going to disagree with that at all, especially because I haven't fished both of them in similar areas. And quite frankly, I don't have an opinion of what makes these baits different from one another. I don't know if you're going to get short strikes on the big guy, if it, is ever advantageous to use the smaller one, but picked up three more of the Bullywa. And it looked to me like I just disappeared for like the last 20 seconds. I kept talking. So I don't know if you guys heard anything that I had to say just about the Bullywa and the bigger size versus the small, but that is one that I'm curious to try. And they were on sale for like $5 or $6 from Midway USA. So did pick up some of those. And yeah, I'm sure there's more stuff that I'm not even mentioning right now that is kind of off my radar for one reason or another. I am curious to try the River to Sea bubble popper. I would say like a year ago, I would have gone for the smaller size of the bubble popper every single time, because really this 88 size it's a big popper. A 3.5 inch long popper is officially a big bait. The Shower Blows 77 is significantly smaller, and this is a walking bait and this is a popper. So this is where you really start to get that overlap. And so this is really on the big end of the spectrum when it comes to poppers. And it looks to be even a little more aggressive than the Pop Max. So I'm going to give it a shot. See how that rattle sound, plus the slightly different action, compares between the Bubble Popper and the Pop Max. But that's one that is going to get tried out sooner than later, because I just have a feeling that the Popper is going to start playing really quickly. I told you guys that I tried out the Shimano World Pop and that I really like the action of that thing, although it is like a walking popper. But it takes a little bit of effort to tighten up your line and get that thing to chug or spit. It really just wants to walk like straight out of the pack. So interesting. But that bubble popper is one I'm curious about. And that thing was like 50% off. So a lot of these baits that I picked up were simply because the deals were too good. But some because I knew I wanted to try it. Or, I need to restock, right? Like the Zoom Swamp Crawlers. I needed a couple more colors of that same bait. But the Jackal Rhythm Wag, totally new bait, and one that's a little bit out there that I'm deciding to give a shot, really as a drop shot specific bait. Now they say on the package that this is a good backslide bait. It has a backsliding setting. So interesting that this could be a backsliding bait. Although at 3.5 inches, I probably wouldn't use it for that, because again, it's going to need like a size 1 or 1/0 hook on it, rather small with this 3.5 inch. So maybe at some point I need to pick up the 4.5 inch and try backsliding and a few other techniques with it. But that Rhythm Wag is one that is new to the market that I was curious to see in person and to try out. And yeah, so lots of new stuff, and I'm not mad about it. What do you guys like the most? What did you guys just pick up recently that you're most excited about? What did I pick up most recently that you're most excited about? You can see at this point that I've got a lot of realistic looking bluegill profile baits, and that hasn't been slowing down anytime recently, and I don't know that it will. Ron says, if you had to guess, would you say you're buying less, more, or the same amount of lures that you were a couple of years ago? Um, I would say somewhere in the range of similar to slightly more. Um, I used to buy stuff because I needed it, because I didn't have a great selection in every category. Uh, Now we're past that, and I'm just either restocking or buying things that I haven't tried before that I'm really interested in. So it's easy for me to load my cart these days, especially with slightly higher end stuff, right? So you'll notice that in front of me right now is a wide range of, uh, you know, Duo Realis and Evergreen, Megabass, uh, Jackal, and a lot of JDM stuff, but then just as many that are Six Sense and Strike King, and uh, well, Lucky Craft kind of bridges that gap, uh, and Rapala, and yeah, a kind of a wide variety of stuff here that a few years ago was not necessarily all on my radar. Uh, I would say it was still getting familiarized with like top 10 techniques that I'm going to use most frequently and building out my arsenal of rods and reels so that I could be most efficient on the water. But since then, I've really dove headfirst into most lure categories, even ones that I don't have a tremendous amount of confidence in. I've gone down most rabbit holes to just kind of learn it, figure it out, decide whether or not there's a time and place that could work for my fishing. And for me, the learning aspect is fun. So a lot of what I picked up in these couple packages, which they all add up to less than $200, right? Rich was joking, "Oh, no free T-shirt from Tackle Warehouse. You got to spend 150 bucks." So no, I kind of split that money up between these three purchases at Midway USA, at Tackle Warehouse, at Discount Tackle, and I got this wide variety of stuff. Hard and soft swim baits, um, some crankbaits, couple top waters, couple jigs, and some soft plastics and some terminal tackle items, just kind of all over the place. And just taking advantage of the deals that I could find was essentially the strategy this go around. Frank says, I'm looking forward to seeing if I can catch a new PB pike on my 130 size gillies, but it's so hard to put down the top water baits. I'd try with glide baits if I could sneak another combo into the house. That's funny. Um, yeah, it is hard to put down the top water baits, and I think you're onto something there, saying that you think a glide bait could be a good option to catch your PB pike. I agree. I think a small to mid-sized swim bait could be the ticket, or a wake bait, or something that's going to be slightly subsurface, because I don't see pike eating on top all that often, but they will chase something through the water column, uh, but everywhere. They'll eat right up close to the bank. They'll eat just under the surface. They'll eat on bottom, but I don't see them blowing up on top very frequently. So, yeah, if you could throw something like a wake bait that's going to get you just subsurface, or a floating jerk bait, a floating crankbait that's only going to run so shallow, um, is really an awesome option for you. I hate to say it, but I think a wake bait, or even a crawler style bait like the Savage Gear bat, um, could be great options. just to make a commotion in the water. Out comes the rat, Mr. Ron Hawley. So the Savage Gear Rat is an awesome surface bait that if you retrieve this thing at like half speed or faster, it will dive down anywhere from 3 to 12 or maybe 18 inches. This thing does not dive very deep. It is a true wake bait meant to wake the surface, but will crank down just a little bit. And then, there's loads of decent wake baits that are all going to do kind of a similar thing. The two that I have really come to love more than the others are the Strike King KVD 2.5 wake. It's got this one knocker in it, the hard knock. Really distinct rattle in that one. And then Berkeley makes the Wake Bull with a very similar concept. Very loud rattle on that guy. And then you could use something like the 6 Cent Speed Wake, although might be a little bit too fast moving of a bait for a pike. But I do think that a wake bait or something that is going to stay barely subsurface for you is probably a slightly better move than using a purely traditional topwater bait like a walking bait or a popper or even a whopper plopper, which sure, pike will hit, but probably not as frequently as they'll hit something moving subsurface or through the middle of the water column. I feel like they are fish that track baits for much longer before eating. Whereas bass tend to just kind of hang out in their haunts and then very snap decision will run after something and go eat it immediately. So yeah, Ron, I did have to. And I'm glad that you'd love to see the Hendrix rat, dude. Guys, we've only got 9 people in here right now. I don't know what happened to our audience, kind of dropping off the last little bit of this live stream, but it is what it is. Not a problem for me. It's 11 o'clock my time, and I do have a lot to do tomorrow. Rather busy day. Before then, Sunday we're packing up, and Monday we head out to go to the sand dunes for the better part of next week before Father's Day. So will be super fun to go do that, but got that kind of looming in the next 36 hours. We're leaving. So a lot of stuff to do here around the house. Plus I'm on full dad duty again tomorrow, as I have been for the last 3 days. But Frank said that 35-inch pike in my profile pic is my current PB. Caught her on a black pop R. Interesting. Well, there you go. Fishing memories using stuff that works, right? Whereas I'm giving you my experience from memories and just telling you that I think that pike are a little bit more methodical eaters. And while they will eat stuff on top, I think you'll get twice as many bites if you're fishing slightly subsurface. Matt says, have you ever used any floating bug jigs before, like the Orikani Mushi Daddy or the Evergreen Gizmo? No, I haven't. Of course, I know the Evergreen Gizmo. I believe that's a floating bait, but I'm not 100% sure. I, years ago, bought the Savage Gear 3D TPE Mayfly, which looks like those baits, but it's got a built-in weight inside it. And it does not float on the surface. So you do have to kind of jig it or fish it somewhere that has current and will allow that thing to ride down current. But I've even fished that under a float and had some really good success on it. So, those are like $3 to $4 baits, and they come one in a pack. and they're pre-rigged, pre-weighted, but um, it took me a while to like get used to just how to fish that thing because if you're not fishing vertically, it's hard to get the right action on it and keep it in the strike zone. So using that under a float started working wonders for me, and I caught probably 25 or 30 fish on the same bait before that weight wanted to really come out. The bait was kind of too torn up, but that was a pretty good bait. But I haven't really used that style of lure very much, Matt. No, I mean, I'm sure they would work, but I've got flies to use for those same situations, you know? So Ron says the Sukiyaki Matsuraba Keto Bitsy bug. Yeah, well, you almost spelled Matsuraba well there. JP says, I picked up a gizmo but haven't tested it out yet. It's a very light bait. Seems like it could be good in calm, skinny water. I believe that for sure. Matt says that's how the Orikane Mushi is. It has its own jig head that floats, has a good amount of weight for its size, comes with extra body to throw it on. Huh. Well, maybe worth giving a shot. You know, it's like you just have to know what to expect when you're getting into that territory and that you're probably going to catch. I mean, it's a multi species bait, right? So you are going to catch bluegill more than you will catch bass, but you might catch crappie, you might catch carp, you might catch a wider variety of baits than you would with a bigger bait, a different style bait, really. So, yeah, interesting concept. John says, I used that Orikanamushi Daddy. Those baits work well with pressured fish used like a tiny popper. Also, the Megabass Grand Siglet is good. Domo arigato. Yeah, that's what you say, Matt, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to get plenty of other fish to eat it. Okay? Bass specific bait, but that doesn't mean that bass only bite it. You can fish it where the bass dominate an area, but you will get smaller fish eating those baits and not just smaller bass. All right, guys, 1 hour and 51 minutes into the stream. Let's call it good right there. I doubt that I will be on again before I leave for the sand dunes in 2 days from now. So there is a high likelihood that we are not going to see each other until after Father's Day. So to everyone in here who is a father or has a father that is still alive, I hope that you guys have an awesome Father's Day next weekend. Happy Father's Day to you or your father. I hope you're able to enjoy it with your father or share a special moment. I fully intend to do the same thing with my kids and with my dad. I'm spending some special time together. So if I don't see you guys before Father's Day, have a great one. And I will plan to see you guys in a little less than 2 weeks. Might see a random video or two from me pop up otherwise, but thank you guys for your support. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. I don't know, audience retention has been kind of up, down, and up tonight. We got 16 people in here right now. Hit that thumbs up for me. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because for whatever reason, there's way too many people that watch this channel and some of my videos and are not subscribed. So help a brother out if somehow you're not subscribed. Frank says, happy day, dads. I told my family they're going fishing with me. Yeah, well, my wife was kind enough to ask me today, what do you want to do on Father's Day? You know, would you rather just go fishing for a while? And I was subtle. I did not immediately say, oh, heck yeah, like I'd love to run away from you guys and spend the whole day fishing. But at the same time, she offered, and it's a decent opportunity that I might need to take advantage of and go fishing for 2 to 4 hours. And we will see. So, guys, Ron, Frank, John, Matt, everybody else who has been active in the chat, JP, appreciate you guys. Thank you for hanging out tonight. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And I will see you again in the next one. Peace out, guys.